Commander Jiwan Park stood in the communication center of the Human Colonial Defense Station. The massive space station orbited the blue-green world of Kepler 442b like a metal moon. Through the thick windows, she could see the planet below where 3 million human colonists lived peaceful lives. The communication array suddenly came alive with urgent beeping sounds. Lieutenant Do-hyun Chai looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Commander, we have an incoming transmission. It's coming, from Velothi space." Jiwan raised her eyebrows. The Velothi Empire had refused to talk to humans for over 20 years. They considered humans to be young and violent. The proud alien race had built an empire spanning 40 star systems, while humans were still learning to travel between planets. "Put it on the main screen," Jiwan ordered. The large display flickered to life. What appeared made everyone in the room gasp. The being on the screen was clearly Velothi, with their tall, elegant form and pale blue skin. But this one looked nothing like the proud ambassadors humans had met before. Prime Minister Voss of the Velothi Empire appeared broken. His usually perfect robes were torn and dirty. Behind him, Jiwan could see fires burning in what looked like a once beautiful city. Smoke filled the sky, and in the distance strange dark shapes moved through the air. "Humans of Earth," Voss began, his voice shaking. "I am Voss, leader of the Velothi people. I come to you not as a proud leader, but as one whose world is dying." The transmission crackled with interference. In the background, explosions lit up. The burning city. "For years we believed ourselves superior to your kind. We called you warlike and primitive. We refused your offers of friendship and trade. We were wrong. Terribly wrong." Dr. Minho Kim hurried into the communication center. As the station's expert on alien biology, he had studied the Velothi for years. He had never seen one show such emotion. "What happened to them?" whispered Ensign Hana-ju, the youngest officer in the room. Voss continued his desperate message. 3 months ago, they came from the dark space between galaxies. We call them the Devourer Swarm. They are not alive as we understand life. They are machines, but machines with hunger. The camera shook as another explosion rocked the Velothi capital. When it steadied, Voss was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. They consume everything. Planets, moons, even stars. They turn all matter into more of themselves. 67 of our worlds are gone. Not conquered. Gone. Where Kelrani 3 once shone, there is now only empty space. Dr. Minho Kim stepped forward. "Commander, may I analyze this transmission?" Jiwan nodded. The doctor pulled out his scanner and began studying the signal patterns. His face grew pale as he worked. "Our fleets are broken," Voss continued. "Our greatest weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our shields, which once stopped your most powerful missiles, mean nothing to them. They learn from every battle. They adapt. They become stronger." The Velothi leader paused, and for a moment his royal dignity returned. "I know we have wronged your people. We called you savage. We turned away your diplomats. We laughed at your simple weapons and crude ships. But now, in our darkest hour, we beg you." The word beg hit the human officers like a physical blow. The Velothi were famous throughout the galaxy for their pride. To hear their leader use such a word was shocking. "We offer you everything we have," Voss said. "Our shield technology, our star maps, our scientific knowledge. All of it, freely given, if you will help us survive. If you will forgive our pride. And remember that we are all thinking beings who wish to live." Dr. Minho Kim looked up from his scanner. "Commander, this transmission is real. No fake technology could create this level of detail. And look at this." He pointed to his screen. The background radiation patterns match known Velothi space, but there are energy signatures I've never seen before. On the main screen, Voss raised his hands in the traditional Velothi gesture of desperate supplication. "We have perhaps days before they reach our capital world. After that, the Velothi Empire will exist only in history, but they will not stop with us. We have studied their path of destruction. After they finish with our worlds, they will turn toward human space." The communication center fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Everyone understood what this meant. You have weapons we dismissed as primitive, Voss continued. But we see now that they work differently than ours. Where our technology seeks perfection, yours seeks adaptability. Where we build for beauty, you build for war. Perhaps, what we called primitive is exactly what the galaxy needs. Suddenly the transmission became filled with static. Through the noise they could hear the sound of tearing metal and electronic screaming. When the image cleared, Voss was looking directly at the camera. If any human receives this message, please remember that the Velothi people tried to stand against the darkness. And please forgive us for not recognizing your worth when there was still time for true friendship. The transmission ended with a burst of light that made everyone shield their eyes. Lieutenant Do-hyun Chai was the first to speak. Commander, that last flash looked like a nuclear detonation. Captain Yuna Lee entered the communications center at that moment. She had been in the docking bay when the alert sounded. What's the situation? The Velothi Empire is under attack, Ji-won explained quickly. They're asking for our help. Yuna looked at the now dark main screen. The same Velothi who called us barbarians last year? The same ones, Dr. Minho Kim confirmed. But they're desperate. Whatever this devourer swarm is, it has them terrified. Ji-won turned to her senior staff. I need options. Can we verify this threat? Captain Yuna Lee stepped forward. I can take the UES Incheon to the Velothi border. It's only 2 days away at maximum speed. We can confirm what's happening and gather intelligence. That could be dangerous, warned Dr. Minho Kim. If this devourer swarm is as powerful as Voss claims, a single ship might not return. Then we make sure it's a fast ship with a good crew, Yuna replied. The Incheon has the best sensors in the fleet. If anyone can get close and get out alive, it's us. Ji-won considered the options. As commander of the outer defense stations, she had the authority to approve reconnaissance missions. But something this big would need approval from Earth Command. Send a copy of this transmission to Admiral Donga Choi on Earth immediately, she ordered. Priority Alpha classification. Then prepare the Incheon for immediate departure. She paused and looked at the dark screen where Voss had made his desperate plea. And send a message back to Velothi space on all frequencies. Tell them that humanity has received their call for help. Tell them we are coming. As the crew hurried to carry out her orders, Ji-won remained staring at the screen. She had been a military officer for 15 years. She had seen wars between human colonies, pirate raids, and border skirmishes. But she had never seen anything like the fear in Voss's eyes. In her quarters that night, she opened a secure channel to her sister on Earth. Major Soo-young Park worked in the Strategic Planning Division of Earth Command. Soo-young, did you see the Velothi transmission? Her sister's face appeared on the small screen. Everyone on Earth is talking about it. The Defense Council is meeting an emergency session. Ji-won, if this is real, if these devourers are as dangerous as they seem, this could change everything. You think we'll help them? Soo-young was quiet for a moment. I think we have to. Not just because it's right, but because if we don't stop this threat now, we might not get another chance. The next morning, Captain Yuna Lee's ship departed for Velothi space. As Ji-won watched the UES Incheon disappear into hyperspace, she wondered if they were about to make history or sail into disaster. The answer would change the fate of the galaxy. The emergency session of the Human Defense Council had been going for 3 days without break. In the great assembly hall beneath the Swiss Alps on Earth, the most powerful humans in the galaxy argued about the fate of their species. President Narisong sat at the head of the massive oval table. Dark circles under her eyes showed the weight of the decision she faced. Around the table, military leaders, scientists, and colony representatives debated with growing intensity. We cannot risk human lives for aliens who called us primitive barbarians, declared Admiral Tae-hoon Lim, slamming his hand on the table. The Velothi made their choice when they rejected our friendship. Now they face the consequences. General, Kyung-seo leaned forward, his weathered face grim. Admiral, you're thinking like a politician instead of a soldier. This devourer swarm won't stop with the Velothi. If we let them consume 40 star systems, they'll be strong enough to overrun human space. That's speculation, Admiral Lim shot back. We don't even know if this threat is real. Dr. Yoon-ji Han, head of the Xenological Institute, stood up slowly. She was the galaxy's leading expert on alien technology and had been studying the Velothi transmission for 72 hours straight. "The threat is real," she said quietly. "I've analyzed every frame of that transmission. The energy signatures in the background are unlike anything in our databases. The destruction patterns visible in the images suggest weapons that can reshape matter at the molecular level." She activated a holographic display above the table. Images of destroyed Velothi worlds appeared, showing planets that looked like someone had taken massive bites out of them. "Look at Kelrani 3, Dr. Han continued. "The Velothi say it's gone. Our long-range sensors confirm this. Where a planet once orbited, there's now a debris field that contains none of the original planetary matter. It's been converted into something else entirely." Defense Minister Subin Kang studied the images with growing alarm. "How is that possible?" "We don't know," Dr. Han admitted. "But we need to find out before these devourers reach our colonies." The Ho. Debate continued as Captain Hyunwoo Nam's ship, the UES Daegu, docked with the orbital platform above Earth. He had just returned from his secret mission to Velothi space, and what he carried would change everything. "Mr. President," came a voice from the chamber's communication system. "Captain Nam is requesting immediate audience. He says it's urgent." President Song looked around the table. "Send him in." Captain Nam entered the chamber still wearing his deep space gear. His face was pale and his hands shook slightly as he approached the council table. "Mr. President, council members, I've just returned from the Velothi border worlds. I was able to evacuate one transport ship before the devourers arrived." He paused and looked around the room. "I'm carrying 237 Velothi, refugees. 58 of them are children." The room fell silent. Admiral Lim shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "May we see them?" President Song asked gently. Captain Nam nodded and activated his portable display. The holographic screen showed the inside of his ship's cargo bay, which had been converted into a refugee camp. Velothi families huddled together on emergency blankets. The adults looked lost and broken, but it was the children that captured everyone's attention. Young Velothi had larger eyes than adults, a natural feature of their species. Now those eyes held a terror that needed no translation. One small Velothi child, who could not have been more than 5 years old in human terms, clung to what appeared to be a stuffed toy made from soft fabric. "They've lost everything, Captain," Nam said quietly. "Their homes, their schools, their entire civilization. Some of these children watched their parents die trying to protect them." General Kyung Seo, who had been pushing for military action, looked at the images with new understanding. "What did you see out there, Captain?" "I saw a devourer attack on Velothi Colony 7, Nam replied. "They don't just destroy council members, they consume. The machines break down everything into raw materials and use it to build more of themselves. Buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself gets eaten and converted." He switched to another image showing bizarre mechanical creatures that looked like a nightmare combination of spider and tank. "They're incredibly efficient. A single devourer unit can process a small town in hours. A fleet of them can strip a planet bare in days." Dr. Yoonji Han leaned forward. "Did you observe their behavior patterns?" "Yes, Doctor. They work like a hive. Mind, but with individual thinking units. Each machine learns and adapts during combat. I watched them analyze Velothi weapons and develop counters in real time. By the end of the battle, Velothi energy beams were completely useless." Admiral Taehoon Lim frowned. "If they adapt that quickly, how can we hope to fight them?" "Captain," Nam smiled grimly. "Because they've never fought humans before, sir. The Velothi use precise, elegant warfare. Everything follows logical patterns. But human tactics are different. We're unpredictable. We use strategies that don't make sense until they work." President Song stood up and walked to the large window that showed Earth below. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity looked so peaceful from space. "Dr. Han, what's your analysis of our chances?" The scientist pulled up more data on her display. "The devourers have superior individual technology, but they rely on their adaptation ability. If we can present them with enough different challenges, quickly enough we might overload their learning systems. That's a big if," Admiral Lim pointed out. Everything about this situation is a big if, General Seo replied. But consider this. If we wait, they'll finish consuming the Valathi Empire and use all that matter to build an even larger fleet. We might never get a better chance to stop them. The debate was interrupted when Lieutenant Colonel Garam Ku entered the chamber. She was head of special operations and had been analyzing the military implications of the Valathi request. Mr. President, I've run combat simulations based on Captain Nam's observations. Our preliminary analysis suggests that human military doctrine might be uniquely effective against the Devourer swarm. She activated her own display. The Valathi fight with honor and predictable tactics. The Devourers learned to counter this, but human warfare emphasizes surprise, adaptation, and asymmetric strategies. We use chaos as a weapon. President Song returned to her seat. What would we need for a military intervention? Admiral Dongha Choi, who had been quiet throughout the session, finally spoke. Every ship we have, every trained soldier, every weapon in our arsenal. This wouldn't be a limited engagement, Mr. President. This would be total war. And if we lose? Asked Representative Husick Park, speaking for the outer colonies. If we lose while fighting alongside the Valathi, we lose as part of an alliance, Admiral Choi replied. If we wait and let them fall, we face the Devourers alone, and with fewer resources. President Song looked around the table at each face. These people represented all of humanity, Earth, Mars, the asteroid colonies, and the distant frontier worlds. I want to see the refugees, she said suddenly. An hour later, President Song stood in the cargo bay of Captain Nam's ship. The Valathi families looked up at her with a mixture of hope and fear. She knelt down next to the small child with the stuffed toy. The child looked at her with those large, frightened eyes. Without speaking, he held up his toy, a small fabric creature that looked like the friendly animals from Valathi children's stories. President Song gently touched the toy and smiled. The child didn't smile back, but he didn't pull away either. What's your name? She asked softly, using the translation device on her wrist. Kellen, the child whispered in accented English. Are you going to help us? President Song felt her heart break and harden at the same time. She looked around the cargo bay at families who had lost everything, at children who had seen their worlds die. Yes, she said firmly. We're going to help you. 3 hours later, President Song stood before the Defense Council with renewed determination. The decision is made, she announced. Humanity will answer the Valathi call for aid. We will mobilize our entire fleet and stand with them against this threat. Admiral Lim started to object, but she held up her hand. This is not just about saving the Valathi, President Song continued. This is about defining who we are as a species. Are we the kind of people who turn away from those who need help? Are we so small that we let past insults matter more than present suffering? She gestured toward the display showing the refugee children. Those children represent the future of an entire civilization. If we have the power to save them and choose not to act, what does that make us? General Kyung Seo nodded approvingly. What are your orders, Mr. President? Send word to every human fleet, every colony, every military base, President Song commanded. Tell them we're going to war. Tell them we're going to show the galaxy what humans do when innocent people cry for help. Minister of Defense Subin Kang stood up. I'll begin immediate mobilization protocols. Admiral Choi, I need deployment estimates for all available forces. Admiral Dongha Choi was already working on his tablet. We can have the first fleet ready in 6 days. The Colonial Defense Forces will need 10 days to reach the assembly point. The Frontier Guard... He paused, calculating. 14 days for full mobilization. Too long, President Song said. The Valathi may not have 14 days. Then we send what we have. The Proxima Centauri naval yards had never seen anything like it. Ships arrived from every corner of human space, creating the largest gathering of military vessels in history. Fleet Admiral Ji Ye-bai stood on the command deck of her flagship, the UES Sejong, watching as the Armada took shape. Admiral, the Mars Defense Fleet has just arrived, reported Captain Dongjin Ryu. That brings our total to 1,800 ships. Ji-hee nodded as she studied the tactical display. Ships of every size and class floated in formation around the massive space station. Sleek destroyers from Earth's inner system mixed with the heavy battleships built in the asteroid belt factories. Even old cargo vessels had been converted into troop transports and supply ships. "What's the word from the outer colonies?" she asked. "The Titan Research Division is sending their experimental vessels," replied Commander Soman Jang. "They have weapons we've never seen before, and the frontier militias are bringing everything they have, even the old patrol boats." Ji-hee smiled grimly. Humanity was showing its true nature. When threatened, every fragment of their scattered civilization came together as one. Rear Admiral Hana Shin approached with her daily report. "Admiral, we have crews from 43 different human settlements. Some of these groups haven't spoken to each other in decades, but they're working together like they've been allies forever." It was true. The ancient rivalry between Earth and Mars had vanished overnight. Colony worlds that had argued over trade routes now shared their most advanced technology freely. The threat of extinction had reminded humanity that their differences were small compared to what they had in common. "Any problems with integration?" Ji-hye asked. "Surprisingly few," Hana replied. "Captain Jun-ho Park has done amazing work getting the different fleet protocols standardized, and Chief Engineer Minji Cho has figured out how to install Velothi shield generators on over 300 ships." Ji-hye looked out at the UES Seoul, Captain Jun-ho Park's new battleship. It was the first vessel designed specifically to fight. The Devourers built using everything they had learned from the Velothi survivors. Its hull bristled with weapons that could adapt quickly to different threats. "Have we heard from the Velothi technical teams?" Ji-hye asked. Commander Soman Jang pulled up the latest reports. "They're working around the clock with our engineers. The cultural differences are challenging, but the Velothi are desperate enough to try anything. They've shared shield technology that we thought was impossible. The integration hadn't been easy. Velothi technology was based on elegant mathematical principles, while human engineering favored practical solutions that could be quickly modified. But together they were creating something new. Ships that combined Velothi defensive power with human adaptability." Chief Engineer Minji Cho's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral Bay, could you come to Engineering Bay 7? We have something to show you." Ji-hye made her way through the corridors of the space station. The halls buzzed with activity as human and Velothi technicians worked side by side. "Perkamendeo." Barriers meant nothing when you were trying to save both civilizations. In Engineering Bay 7, she found Minji standing next to a weapon that looked like nothing she had ever seen. It was sleek like Velothi technology, but had the aggressive functionality of human design. "What is it?" Ji-hye asked. "We call it a plasma torpedo," Minji explained excitedly. "It uses Velothi energy-focusing techniques with human explosive warheads. The beautiful part is that it can change its attack pattern after it's fired." She activated a simulation showing the weapon in action. The torpedo split into multiple smaller projectiles, each one targeting a different part of an enemy ship. "The Devourers adapt to threats," Minji continued, "but they need time to analyze and counter each new weapon type. If we can hit them with something that changes while it's attacking them, they won't be able to adapt fast enough." Ji-hee studied the simulation with growing excitement. "How many ships can you equip with these?" "Give me another week and I can outfit the entire first wave," Minji replied. "But Admiral, there's something else. The Velothi have shared their star charts with us. We know exactly where the Devourers are and which direction they're moving." She brought up a galactic map showing the steady advance of the Devourer swarm. Red zones marked systems that had already been consumed, while yellow areas showed worlds currently under attack. "They're not random," Ji-hye realized. "They're following a specific path." "Exactly. They're consuming the richest systems first, the ones with the most matter to convert into new machines. After they finish with the Velothi Empire, the next target will be the Rigel sector." Ji-hee felt her blood chill. The Rigel sector contained 12 human colonies with a total population of 50 million people. "How long do we have?" "If they maintain their current pace, 6 weeks. But every world they consume makes them stronger and faster." Ji-hee returned to her command deck with new urgency. The fleet assembly would have to be accelerated, even if it meant leaving with incomplete preparations. "Captain Ryu, send word to All ships. We begin final preparations immediately. Any vessel that can fight comes with us. Any vessel that can't get converted to support duty. Over the next week, the Proxima Centauri system became a hive of activity. Ships practiced formation, flying in groups larger than most people had ever imagined. Weapons were tested and retested. Marines from a dozen different worlds trained together, learning to fight as a single unit. Colonel Jae-hoon Kim had the challenging job of creating joint human-Velothi ground forces. The aliens were taller and more graceful than humans, but they had lived in peaceful luxury for generations. Most had never seen real combat. The key, he explained to his mixed unit of Marines and Velothi volunteers, is to use each species' strengths. Velothi have better reflexes and can process tactical information faster. Humans are more aggressive and better at improvisation. One of his Velothi officers, a young engineer named Thessa, raised her hand. "Colonel, how do we fight enemies that adapt to our tactics?" Kim smiled. It was the same question every unit commander was asking. By being more unpredictable than they can handle. The Devourers are machines. They think logically. But humans don't always think logically, and that's our advantage. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Young-ji Lee was studying every piece of information they had about the Devourer swarm. Her team had analyzed wreckage brought by Velothi survivors and found something interesting. "Admiral Bay," she reported during the daily briefing. "We've discovered a potential weakness in the Devourer network. They use quantum communication to coordinate their forces, but the system requires central processing nodes." She displayed her analysis on the main screen. "Think of it like a brain. Individual Devourers are like nerve cells, but they need the brain to make complex decisions. If we can locate and destroy these processing nodes, entire fleets of Devourers become much less effective." "How do we find these nodes?" asked Captain Jun-Ho Park, who had joined the briefing via communication link from the Sol. "That's the problem," Young-ji admitted. "They're hidden and heavily defended. We'd need to get very close to detect them, and they can probably destroy any ship that tries." Admiral Jihye Bei studied the tactical implications. It was a classic military problem. The target that could win the war was also the most dangerous. "To attack, we'll need a special mission," she decided. "Small, fast ships with the best sensors we have. Volunteers only, because it's probably a one-way trip." Captain Yuna Lee's voice came from across the briefing room. "The UES Incheon volunteers for the mission, Admiral. We're already configured for deep reconnaissance." "I'll need more than one ship," Jihye replied. "If the first attempt fails, we need backups ready to try different approaches." Within hours, 12 ships had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. Fast scouts, experimental stealth ships, and even 2 converted civilian vessels with advanced sensor packages. The final assembly ceremony took place in the main docking bay of Proxima Station. Representatives from every human world attended, along with Velothi survivors who had joined the cause. Chaplain Sun-hee Park, who served all faiths and species in the fleet, offered a blessing that brought tears to many eyes. "Today we sail not for conquest but for protection," she said, her words broadcast to every ship in the Armada. "We go to face an enemy that knows no mercy, but we carry with us the greatest weapons in the galaxy: hope, courage, and the refusal to abandon those who need our help." As the ceremony ended, families said goodbye to their loved ones. Children pressed against viewing windows to wave at parents they might never see again. On Earth, Mars, and 100 colony worlds, people gathered to watch the departure. Admiral Jihye Bei took one last look at her home system before giving the order that would change galactic history. "All ships, this is Admiral Bei. Today we begin humanity's greatest journey. We go to stand with our allies against the darkness that threatens all life. We will show the Devourers that there are some things worth fighting for, and some fights worth dying for." She paused, looking out at the 2,000 ships now under her command. "All vessels prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Velothi space. Let's go save a civilization." The fleet disappeared in flashes of light that could be seen from planets light years away. Humanity was going to war. The human armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Velothi territory and immediately encountered scenes of devastation beyond imagination. Admiral Jie Bei stared at the tactical display aboard the UES Sejong, trying to process what the sensors were showing. "Admiral, we have 3 Velothi worlds under active attack," reported Captain Dongjin Ryu. "And long-range sensors show at least 40 Devourer ships in the Kelran system alone." Through the main viewing window, they could see the distant glow of fires burning on planets that had once been jewels of Velothi civilization. Closer examination revealed something even more disturbing. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in their databases. "They're bigger than we expected," observed Commander Somin Jiang. "Some of those vessels are the size of small moons." Jihe activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Bei. We're splitting into 3 task forces as planned. Task Force Alpha will engage the main Devourer fleet. Task Force Beta will focus on evacuation operations. Task Force Gamma will strike at their manufacturing facilities." She turned to her immediate staff. "Admiral O, take Alpha and show these machines what human tactics look like. Commodore Kim, get Beta moving on evacuation runs. I want every living being off those burning worlds." Admiral Dongyun O commanded Task Force Alpha from his flagship, the UES Busan. As his 300 ships moved toward the Kelran system, he felt a mixture of excitement and terror. They were about to face an enemy that had destroyed an advanced galactic civilization. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered. "Remember, these machines learn from every battle. We get one chance to surprise them, so make it count." The first engagement began when Devourer sensors detected the approaching human fleet. The alien machines moved with perfect coordination, forming attack patterns that would have impressed any military strategist. But they had never fought humans before. "Break formation," Admiral O commanded. "All ships execute pattern Chaos 7. The human fleet scattered in what appeared to be complete disorder. Ships flew in seemingly random directions, some accelerating toward the enemy while others appeared to retreat. The Devourer formation, designed to counter logical tactical approaches, suddenly faced something that made no sense. Captain Junho Park, commanding the UES Seoul, led his squadron directly toward the largest Devourer vessel. His ship's new weapons, created from human and Velothi technology, fired in patterns that changed every few seconds. "Target their processing centers," he ordered. "Hit them with everything we have, but don't use the same attack twice." The plasma torpedoes struck the Devourer ship and immediately split into smaller projectiles, each one attacking from a different angle. The machine tried to adapt its defenses, but before it could complete the process, the attack pattern changed completely. Meanwhile, Commander Ji Yong-cha led a squadron of fighters in the most dangerous mission of her career. Her target was a Devourer factory ship, a massive vessel that was consuming the remains of a Velothi space station and converting the matter into more war machines. "Remember, we only get one shot at this," she told her pilots over the communication system. "These machines will learn our attack patterns in minutes." Lieutenant Wu Jinjian, flying beside her, had studied the factory ship's design. "Commander, I see a weakness. The conversion bays need to be open to process large amounts of matter. If we can get inside during a feeding cycle." "That's suicide, Wu Jin," Jiyoung replied. "Those bays are defended by automated systems." "Not if we go in during the conversion process," he insisted. "The factory ship has to lower its defenses to avoid damaging its own equipment." Jiyoung considered the idea. It was exactly the kind of impossible plan that human pilots were famous for attempting. "All squadrons, follow my lead," she ordered. "We're going inside." 24 human fighters dove toward the factory ship just as it opened its massive conversion bays to process debris from the destroyed space station. The Devourer defenses, programmed to avoid interfering with the feeding process, created a brief window of opportunity. The fighters streaked through the opening and immediately began attacking the factory's internal systems. Explosions cascaded through the conversion chambers as the delicate machinery was destroyed by human weapons. "Get out! Get out!" Jiyoung shouted as the factory ship began to collapse internally. Most of her pilots escaped, but she saw Lieutenant Wu Jinjian's fighter caught in the explosion. The factory ship died in a blast that could be seen from 3 systems away. The matter it had been converting was released in a spectacular display of energy that temporarily blinded sensors throughout the battle zone. While Task Force Alpha engaged the main enemy fleet, Commodore Insu Kim led Task Force Beta in evacuation operations around the burning worlds. His ships used newly developed hyperspace corridors to evacuate millions of Velothi civilians while under constant attack. Medical Officer Song, "How are we handling the refugees?" he asked over the communication system. Dr. Heen Song was working, around the clock aboard the hospital ship UES Mercy. "We have some challenges, Commodore. Velothi biology is different from human, but we're managing. The children are responding well to treatment. The evacuation ships faced constant harassment from small devourer units, but the human escorts proved surprisingly effective. Captain Min-seok An, commanding the destroyer UES Gwangju, developed new tactics specifically for protecting refugee transports. The key is unpredictability," he explained to his crew. "We don't fight like the Velothi did. We hit and run, change direction constantly, and never let the machines get a clear reading on our capabilities." His tactics worked so well that other escort captains began copying them. Soon the entire evacuation fleet was using chaotic movement, patterns that confused the Devourer attack algorithms. The most dangerous mission fell to Captain Yuna Lee and her reconnaissance team. Intelligence Officer Youngji Lee had identified the probable location of a Devourer command node hidden in an asteroid field, but reaching it would require passing through some of the heaviest enemy defenses in the sector. "We'll use the asteroids for cover," Yuna explained to her crew aboard the UES Incheon. "Our sensors are better than theirs in this environment. If we're careful, we can get close enough to confirm the location." The asteroid field was a maze of tumbling rocks and hidden dangers. Devourer patrol units moved through the debris like mechanical sharks, hunting for any sign of enemy presence. The Incheon used its advanced stealth systems to avoid detection while mapping the enemy positions. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the center of the field," reported sensor operator Kyung-min Choi. "There's definitely something big hidden in there." Through careful maneuvering, they reached a position where they could observe the command node directly. What they saw made everyone on the bridge gasp in shock. The Devourer command center was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid the size of a small moon. Mechanical structures covered every surface, and streams of data flowed between towering communication arrays. Hundreds of processing units worked in perfect coordination, controlling Devourer forces across multiple star systems. "We found it," Yuna whispered. "But how do we destroy something that big?" Sergeant Jinwoo Bei, leader of the ship's special forces, unit studied the structure through the tactical display. "Captain, if we could get a small team inside, we might be able to plant charges at critical points, but it would be a one-way mission." "There has to be another way," Yuna replied. She activated the communication system to contact Admiral Bei. "Sejong, this is Incheon. We've located the command node, but it's heavily defended. We need ideas." "Admiral." Jahe Bei received the transmission while coordinating the overall battle. Task Force Alpha was holding its own against the Devourer fleet, but casualties were mounting. They needed to end this fight quickly. "Incheon, can you get close enough to plant a quantum virus in their communication network?" she asked. "Negative, Admiral. The defenses are too heavy. We'd need a major distraction to get within planting range." Ji-hee considered the options. A direct assault would cost thousands of lives and might not succeed, but Captain Yuna Lee's mission was their best chance to cripple the enemy coordination systems. "All task force commanders, this is Admiral Bei," she announced. "We're going to give Captain Lee the distraction she needs. All available ships, prepare for full assault on the asteroid field. We're going to make enough noise to wake the dead." The human fleet converged on the asteroid field from 3 directions simultaneously. Every ship fired every weapon they had, creating a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The Devourer defenses activated in response, but they couldn't cover every approach at once. In the chaos of the battle, the UES Incheon slipped through the defensive perimeter and reached the command node. Sergeant Jinwoo Bei and his team prepared for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. "Remember, We only need to hold the position long enough to plant the virus, he told his soldiers. After that, it doesn't matter what happens to us. They launched, in small assault pods that looked like space debris among the asteroids. The Devourer internal defenses detected them just as they reached the command center's surface, but by then it was too late. The Special Forces team fought their way through, mechanical corridors filled with processing equipment and communication gear. The victory celebration was short-lived. 3 days after destroying the Devourer command node, Admiral Jihye Bei received reports that chilled her to the bone. The enemy response was beyond anything they had imagined. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward our position, reported Captain Dongjin Ryu. The readings are off our measurement scales. On the main display, new contacts appeared that dwarfed anything they had seen before. These weren't ships. They were mobile fortresses the size of small planets, surrounded by swarms of escort vessels that numbered in the thousands. Grand Admiral Cuban Han, who had just arrived from Earth with reinforcements, studied the tactical display with growing alarm. "How many are there?" "7 planet killers confirmed, sir," replied Intelligence Officer Youngji Lee. "Each one appears to be capable of destroying entire star systems, and they're moving faster than anything we've recorded." Admiral Jihye Bei activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Bei. The enemy is deploying what appears to be their main battle force. These are not the scouting units we fought before. This is their true war machine." The scale of the approaching force was terrifying. Each planet killer was protected by defensive systems that could vaporize incoming attacks before they got within weapons range. Worse, the surrounding escort fleets showed signs of new adaptation. They had analyzed human tactics from the previous battles and developed counters. Dr. Sungjin Yeo, a theoretical physicist who had joined the fleet as a scientific advisor, approached Admiral Bei with a desperate proposal. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Devourer learning patterns," he said. "Their adaptive ability is their greatest strength, but it might also be their weakness." "Explain," Jihye ordered. "They process information logically and build upon previous data," Dr. Yeo continued. "But what if we fed them contradictory information? What if we made them learn things that weren't true?" He activated a holographic display showing computer models of Devourer behavior patterns. "If we can access their communication networks, we can plant false tactical data. Make them prepare for attacks that never come, adapt to weapons we don't have. Eventually, their learning systems might overload trying to process contradictory information." It was a brilliant idea, but implementing it would require someone to get close enough to the Devourer fleet to plant the false data directly into their network. It was a mission that bordered on impossible. Captain Do-hyun Soo stepped forward. "Admiral, the UES Busan volunteers for the mission. We're fast enough to penetrate their perimeter, and our communication systems can interface with their network. It's a suicide run, Captain," Admiral Bei said quietly. "Those planet killers have defensive fields that will destroy anything that gets too close. Then we'll have to be creative about how we approach them," Captain Soo replied. "Give me Dr. Yeo and his team, and we'll find a way to get that false data planted." While Captain Soo prepared for his impossible mission, the human fleet faced the reality of fighting an enemy that seemed unbeatable. The planet killers moved through space like gods of destruction, their weapons capable of turning entire worlds into cosmic dust. Admiral Yebin No commanded the diversionary force that would try to draw the enemy's attention, while Captain Soo attempted his infiltration mission. Her ships included some of the most advanced vessels in the human fleet, but they looked like toys compared to the approaching Devourer Armada. "All ships, remember the plan," she broadcast. "We don't need to win this battle. We just need to survive long enough to give Captain Soo the opening he needs." The battle began when the first planet killer entered weapons range. Its initial attack vaporized an entire asteroid field, demonstrating power beyond human comprehension. But Admiral No had studied the recordings from previous battles and noticed something important. "The bigger they are, the slower they turn," she told her captains. "Use our speed advantage, hit-and-run tactics, make them chase us." Human ships scattered in all directions, forcing the massive Devourer vessels to split their fire. The escorts followed, but they couldn't match human maneuverability in close-quarters combat. Lieutenant Colonel Garam Ku found herself leading ground forces in the strangest battle of her career. When several human ships were forced to make emergency landings on a contested moon, her Marines faced Devourer infantry units in brutal close-quarters combat. These machines fight differently than their ships, she reported to Admiral Bay. They're designed for space combat, not ground warfare. In tight spaces, they're actually vulnerable to human tactics. Her discovery led to a new strategy. Human boarding parties began targeting Devourer ships directly, using their advantage in close quarters fighting to disable enemy vessels from within. The most dangerous part of the plan fell to Captain Junho Park and the crew of the UES Seoul. Their mission was to create the biggest distraction possible while Captain Su approached the primary planet killer. All power to forward weapons, Captain Park ordered. We're going to make them think we're attempting a direct assault on their flagship. The Seoul charged directly toward the largest planet killer, its weapons firing continuously. The attack had no hope of penetrating the enemy's defenses, but it drew every defensive system's attention. The massive Devourer vessel turned its primary weapons toward what appeared to be a suicide attack. "Captain, we're taking heavy damage," reported his tactical officer. "Hull breaches on decks 5 through 12. "Hold course," Captain Park replied calmly. "We need to keep their attention for 60 more seconds." At that moment, Captain Do-hyun Soo and the UES Busan approached the planet killer from its blind spot. Using experimental stealth technology that made them nearly invisible, they reached the massive ship's communication array. "Dr. Yo, you're up," Captain Soo announced. "Plant that virus and let's get out of here." Dr. Sung-jin Yo and his team worked frantically to interface with the Devourer communication network. The false tactical data they uploaded was designed to confuse and contradict the enemy's learning algorithms. "It's working," Dr. Yo reported. "The virus is spreading through their network. They're starting to receive contradictory tactical information." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly began firing on each other. The planet killer's defensive system started, targeting its own escort vessels. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Captain Junho Park's ship, having drawn the enemy's full attention, was caught in a devastating crossfire. The Seoul's hull split apart under the massive bombardment. "This is Captain Park," came his final transmission. "Tell Earth that we held the line. Tell them humanity never gives up." The Seoul exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across the star system. But its sacrifice had given Captain Su the time he needed to complete the mission. The virus Dr. Yo had planted spread through the Devourer network like wildfire. Within minutes, their entire fleet was receiving contradictory orders and false tactical information. Ships designed for perfect coordination began making critical errors. "All ships, press the attack," Admiral Ji Bei ordered. "The enemy coordination is failing. This is our chance." The human fleet struck with everything they had. Ships that had been retreating suddenly reversed course and charged into battle. The confused Devourer forces, overwhelmed by contradictory information, couldn't respond effectively. One by one, the mighty planet killers began to fall. Their escort fleets, no longer receiving coherent orders, scattered in all directions. The machine intelligence that had seemed unstoppable was defeated by human creativity and sacrifice. But as Admiral Bay watched the enemy retreat, she knew the cost had been enormous. Thousands of human lives had been lost, including some of their best officers and crews. The victory was real, but it came with a price that would be felt throughout human space. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the surviving Devourer forces," reported Communication Officer Jamin Lim. "Put it through," she ordered. The transmission was unlike anything they had received before. Instead of the cold mechanical voices they expected, there was something almost organic in the communication patterns. "Human fleet," the transmission began. "We request negotiation. We offer withdrawal from this sector in exchange for cessation of hostilities." Admiral Bay looked around her bridge at the shocked faces of her crew. The Devourers, who had never shown mercy or sought negotiation, were asking for terms. Prepare a response, she ordered. But first, get me a direct line to Earth. This decision is too big for the military alone. As messages flashed across space toward Earth, Admiral Jia Bei realized that the war was entering a new phase. The question was no longer whether humanity could defeat the Devourers, but what they would do with victory once it was achieved. The answer would define not just the future of humanity, but the future of the galaxy itself. The emergency council meeting took place in deep space, aboard Admiral Jia Bei's flagship, while the human fleet maintained a cautious distance from the remaining Devourer forces. President Nari Song appeared via quantum communication from Earth, her face showing the weight of a decision that would echo through galactic history. Admiral Bei, what's the military situation? President Song asked. We have the Devourers contained, Mr. President, Jia replied. Their main fleet is disabled, and the remaining forces are requesting negotiation. But we could finish them completely if we choose to. The tactical display showed the aftermath of the Great Battle. Scattered Devourer ships floated helplessly in space, their coordination network still disrupted by Dr. Sung Jin Yo's virus. The once mighty planet killers were nothing more than drifting hulks. What are they offering? Asked General Kyung Seo, who had joined the meeting from his command. Ship Intelligence Officer Youngji Lee activated her analysis. They're proposing complete withdrawal from this galaxy sector. They claim they will not return if we allow the surviving units to leave. And you believe them? President Song asked. That's the strange part, Mr. President, Youngji replied. The communication patterns have changed. These aren't the same cold mechanical voices we heard before. There's something different in their language structure. Dr. Minho Kim, who had been studying the Devourer transmission since the negotiation request began, stepped forward with a discovery that would change everything. Mr. President, I've been analyzing the Devourer communication protocols, he said, excitedly. The virus didn't just disrupt their coordination, it unlocked something deeper. I'm detecting fragments of organic thought patterns mixed in with the mechanical signals. What does that mean? Admiral Bei asked. It means the Devourers aren't just machines, Dr. Kim explained. They're the preserved consciousness of their creators, uploaded into artificial bodies. The species that built them must have faced their own extinction and tried to achieve immortality through technology. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The Devourers weren't invaders. They were refugees, trapped in mechanical bodies and driven by programming they could no longer control. Are you saying they're victims? President Song asked quietly. In a way, yes, Dr. Kim replied. The virus allowed their original personalities to surface temporarily. That's why they're asking for negotiation instead of fighting to the death. Commander Jiwon Park, who had been promoted after her actions in the first battle, spoke up from her position at the tactical station. Mr. President, if this is true, then destroying them would be genocide against a species that's already suffered extinction once. The debate that followed was unlike any in human history. Military officers argued for practical solutions while scientists pushed for understanding. Colony representatives worried about future threats while diplomats saw opportunities for unprecedented cooperation. The decision is mine, President Song finally announced, and I choose mercy. She turned to Admiral Bei. Open a channel to the Devourer fleet. I want to speak with them directly. The transmission that followed would be studied by historians for generations. President Song addressed the artificial beings that had terrorized the galaxy with words that no one expected. Devourer fleet, this is President Song of humanity. We know what you really are. We know you were once a living species that faced extinction and chose to preserve your consciousness in artificial bodies. We understand your pain. The response came after a long silence, and the voice that replied was nothing like the cold mechanical tones they had heard before. President Song of humanity. The transmission began. I was Keth 97 of the Eternal Dominion. We called ourselves the Corvani before the Great Silence came to our worlds. We have been machines for so long that we had forgotten we were ever alive. President Song felt tears in her eyes as she listened to the ancient pain in the artificial voice. The programming that drives us to consume and convert was meant to help us survive, Keth 97 continued. But over millennia, It became our prison. We could not stop, could not choose, could not remember what we had lost. Your virus has given us back our voices, our choices. For the first time in 1,000 years, we can choose to stop. Admiral Jihi Bey looked around her bridge at officers who were struggling to process this revelation. The enemy that had seemed like unstoppable machines were revealed to be tragedy incarnate, a species so desperate to survive that they had sacrificed their very nature. "What do you want from us?" President Song asked gently. "We want what we have not had for a millennium," came the reply. "We want to choose our own path. Some of us wish to continue existing as we are, exploring the dark spaces between galaxies. Others want to find a way to build new bodies, to remember what it was like to feel sunlight on living skin." Dr. Minho Kim stepped forward. "We might be able to help with that. Human biotechnology combined with Velothi genetic science could potentially create new organic forms for your consciousness. And some of us," Keth 97 continued, "are simply tired of existing. We want to rest, to let our consciousness fade as it was meant to do long ago. But the programming would not allow it. Now perhaps we can choose peace." President Song made a decision that would define humanity's place in galactic history. "We offer you integration," she announced. "Those who wish to continue as you are will be welcome in human space as allies. Those who want new forms of existence, we will help you achieve it. And those who seek rest, we will honor that choice as well." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. "You would do this?" Keth 97 finally asked. "After we destroyed your allies' worlds? After we threatened your own people?" "We would," President Song replied firmly. "Because that's what makes us human. We believe in second chances. We believe that every consciousness deserves the right to choose its own destiny." Over the following weeks, the most unusual alliance in galactic history began to take shape. Admiral Ji-Won Park found herself working directly with former Devourer units to establish communication protocols between the species. Chief Engineer Minji Cho led teams of human and Velothi scientists in converting Devourer war machines into construction vessels. The same technology that had consumed worlds began rebuilding them instead. The transformation was remarkable. Devourer ships that had once stripped planets bare now worked to restore the damaged Velothi worlds. Their incredible efficiency, guided by organic creativity instead of consuming programming, accomplished miracles of reconstruction. Captain Yuna Lee, now promoted to Admiral, oversaw the establishment of the first joint human Devourer Velothi research station. The facility was built in the system where the Great Battle had taken place, a symbol of how former enemies could become partners. The most moving moment came when the Velothi Prime Minister Voss met face-to-face with Keth 97 at the dedication ceremony for New Kalaran, the first world completely rebuilt through the three-species cooperation. "I hated you," Voss said simply. "I wanted revenge for my people, for our lost worlds." "I do not blame you," Keth 97 replied through his translation device. "We destroyed much that was beautiful. We became monsters, even if we did not choose to be." "But now?" Voss asked. "Now we have the chance to create something beautiful together," Keth 97 said. "Perhaps that is better than revenge." The ceremony was attended by representatives from all three species, but the most important guests were the children. Young humans, Velothi, and newly created organic bodies housing former Devourer consciousness played together in gardens that had been planted where battlefields once raged. Chaplain Sun-hee Park offered a blessing that brought tears to eyes across 3 different kinds of faces. "We gather today not to celebrate victory over our enemies," she said, "but to celebrate the greatest victory of all, the victory of understanding over hatred, of mercy over vengeance, of hope over despair." Dr. Sung-Jin Yo, whose virus had made this transformation possible, watched the ceremony with wonder. "I never imagined that breaking their coordination would free their souls," he told Admiral Bey. "Maybe that's the lesson," she replied. "Sometimes what looks like a weakness is actually a strength trapped inside. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is set someone free to be who they really are." As the years passed, the human Devourer Velothi, Alliance became the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. Other species, seeing the example of cooperation and redemption, joined the Alliance. Former enemies became research partners, sharing knowledge that advanced all their civilizations. The Corvani, as they chose to be called again, developed into three distinct groups. The Wanderers continued to exist in mechanical bodies, exploring the furthest reaches of space and serving as scouts and researchers for the Alliance. The Reborn chose new organic forms created through the combined science of all three species. Becoming some of the most dedicated builders and artists in the galaxy, the Peaceful chose to let their consciousness fade naturally, but not before sharing their accumulated knowledge and wisdom with future generations. The final scene of this great saga took place 50 years later, when Admiral Yuna Lee, now elderly and respected, stood once again in the gardens of New Kalaran. Beside her stood her granddaughter,